Hey, Mike here. It's September 24th, 2024, 10:10 a.m. And this is a Poor Bastard series part 4. It's really a continuation of part 3. And, in part 3, um, our subject here was considered a loser, okay, by his in-laws, basically, who had no understanding, absolutely no understanding of the business, the times that the poor bastard was in, trying to make it in the business, the mortgage business, which was extremely difficult when you're not from an area. And it's, no one. You're starting out cold. You're looking at 6 months to a year to start bringing in some consistent income. In the market that existed in 1995, it was really tough. It was a very tight field. The bank that our poor bastard went to work for touted itself to have a mortgage company culture, but it sure didn't. Okay, it was still a bank at the end of the day, with bank attitudes, with a bank compliance officer that expected all loan officers to take any loan, regardless of how many charge-offs and repos and how crappy someone's history may be for their job. And it was just a horrible loan. Oh, you still have to take that loan. Okay, it doesn't work that way in a mortgage company, for example. Okay, I mean, I saw a full-page ad taken out by a Long Island bank in that time period, bragging about a 70% approval rate. Um, my approval rate was 99.99. Okay? It's just a totally different culture. Well, anyways, it was a really tough time. And of course, you have a tight field. And when you go to work for a place, there's a few people in there that are doing quite well, been there a while, and they are, they have relationships already. You have none. And I can tell you that loan officers at this bank, a couple of them that were doing well, um, what they did, because times were so good, is that they always set up a really nice food spread for the realtor caravans, okay? That was their angle, put out a nice, when all the realtors would come to a particular house for an open house from all the different companies on their caravan, you would have a nice lunch set up for them, okay, the whole thing. So obviously in that area, um, well, our poor bastard was not able to do that kind of thing, but he had other angles. And going directly to try to find or to develop leads for um, home buyers. He really focused on the first-time home buyers. Okay, he would much rather throw a realtor a deal than give them some food for lunch. But the whole idea was to be able to socialize with them, get to know them. It was a good thing, okay, that they were doing. Really good thing. However, my angle put me in conflict with certain people, okay? That might have, in regards to what I was doing, whether it be out knocking on doors, uh, having an appointment with a particular attorney in the Bronx. That was definitely a no-no. There was a VP from the Bronx that was pretty big that I don't think appreciated that. But anyways, to make a long story short, I was shocked. I got fired from this place, okay? Didn't do anything wrong, was working it, really trying to establish a presence. I did have 5 bank branches. Not a thing was going on out of those branches. Like I said, it was a tough time. So when I got, quote, axed, that's the only time that I was fired in the mortgage business. In fact, uh, companies would be like, we want 10 guys just like him. Matter of fact, that's what my employer of 12 years, um, they really did appreciate my work ethic and everything I did. They wanted 10 more just like me, okay? And it's like, when you have somebody doing things and working it, let me tell you, smaller companies, mortgage companies, the owner will be like, boy, I didn't think about doing that. Boy, I wish I had thought of that. Or I'm just glad that I got somebody who's out doing, who's working the deal. So anyways, after I got, quote, axed, okay, it was after an appointment, believe it or not, with a community group. And I went to talk to them about my first-time homebuyer program, first-time homebuyer seminars about trying to develop and pre-qualify buyers. This person put the knife in my back, hardcore. The reason I was fired, supposedly, was that meeting with that community person. Okay? I can't remember the name of the place, but I was always out, knocking doors, looking to look for some type of partnership or in, okay? And in a tight field, you can piss off some people. And I thought about it afterwards, and I remember I blew somebody out the door once. I really did. I heard they were probably going to be associating and coming in to work for us. I did not want them there. I blew them out the door before they even got there. Okay, we've all done it. I mean, I hate to say it. Okay, I could not have that person working within my office, within my territory. So I think when I went to the Bronx and met with that attorney, I think that was a serious mistake as well. Okay, there was a VP from that area that might not have liked it, who did a lot of business. Didn't want a guy with my last name running around in the Bronx. I don't know. Was that it? I have no idea. Sometimes things don't work out despite how hard you try. Okay? It's just the way it goes. Enough on that. So what did I do? I said, well, I'm going to go right into the Bronx. I sure am. I said, wow. I said, because I got the impression I wasn't wanted there when I was working in the last place. So I said, I'm going there. A lot of different property types, all kinds of different buyers, a lot of opportunities for people that really need help putting deals together. I mean, you have a lot of people that might be foreign, that might just move there, the whole thing. It was, I saw it as a lot of opportunity. So what did I do? I went down into Morris Park. It was like an Italian section there. I met a realtor there, and you know what he said? He says, yep, last of the effing Mohegans right here. Because over the years, you get all the push coming into the city, and the neighborhoods get people move in and people move out. And so, you had the last of the hardcore group of survivors that are hanging on down there in the Northeast Bronx, while, it's basically being overrun by humanity from, everywhere. Northeast Bronx was a substantially Caribbean, also South American. You had Guyana, Trinidad, a lot of people, a lot of East Indians, a lot of Jamaicans. Okay, that was really in Northeast Bronx. That's who was really taking over. So I went back in. I went to Morris Park, and I found myself an office. It was a sublet. There was an old guy that had an extra office attached to his office, a little office, and I subletted it, and it was in a cooperative where I guess you could say there were within this larger office there were different attorneys and that were working out of that office. Across the street, okay, was I think the state senator from that area, okay, literally right across the street. So that is what I was set in, and I went to work and trying to establish myself once again, but I needed to affiliate with a company, and I interviewed with American Home Mortgage, Steve Johnson. But that place was all the way in Midtown. They were across. They were right in Midtown. The origination office. I mean, they were out of Melville, New York, as far as their servicing operations and everything else. But their origination office was out of Manhattan. Okay, I didn't want to take a quote subway anytime I needed to go in there, and I wasn't quite sure if they were savvy enough for what was probably going on in the Bronx. And I affiliated with a company out of Queens who had a presence, was known in my area, and I affiliated with them. So Morris Park was where I was located, working every day. And I opened that office, I don't know, it was summer of 1995. And for about 6-7 months, I think February was the end at that point. That's when, I was pretty much just working outside of the office of the company that I was affiliated with. They had expense money, your mileage, who you saw, the whole thing. I was living on expense money. Now, on February 2nd of 1996, not February 2nd, Valentine's Day, 1996, I walked out. Left my ex, and lived in my car. And I figured, what the heck? It's a camping trip, basically. It was no big deal. I just assumed I was with a halfway decent company. I was determined to make it in the Bronx. And it was tough down there. Let me tell you, we're going to be getting into the realities of the Bronx. I couldn't believe what it was like to be in the real estate business, mortgage business, in the 5 boroughs, okay? It was something else, to say the least. So, no one knew I was homeless. You think I told people I was homeless? I wore a suit every day. I took a shower at the gym, caught my breakfast over at McDonald's, okay? It's real simple. You have a big cup of coffee, and then you replace the coffee after you're done with a nice bit with cereal. You get the cream from the creamer. All the way back then in 1995, they weren't really so big on the control of it. And I was able to have half and half every morning with cereal. That's how I started my days. And it was really tough. Okay, for a lot of reasons, working down there. All right, part of is parking, and if the meter ran out within 2 minutes of you being there, I mean, it was a ticket. It was like amazing. And then if you didn't pay it in 2 weeks, it was going to double. So you better pay it. And then if you didn't pay it in 2 weeks after it doubled, it would double again, maybe in 30 days, and then it would double again in 90 days, and then it would be a lien upon you. And then there would be people with cars checking license plates, putting boots on vehicles that had, a pretty good amount of change. It was nothing for somebody to accumulate $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in parking tickets with all the doubling. Okay, and then when they go get a mortgage and the title search is done, what happens? They go, or search on them, and they go, well, you got to pay the $6,000 off before closing. And then I think the mortgage tax for Northeast Bronx was 1 3/4 points, I think. Some boroughs were 2. Could you imagine taking out a $400,000 loan and paying $8,000 at the closing as a tax to New York City? Yeah. So what was a real trip going down there? And of course, I found out that most of the realtors, a good portion, at least 60%, okay? I don't have official numbers, but most, I mean, it was like a portion of the realtors were involved with the board of realtors and were actually members of the board of realtors. You had the wild, wild west going on out there. You had all these licensed real estate offices that weren't even participating with the board of realtors at that time. And then business, the way it was done, payoffs and kickbacks. No payoffs, no kickbacks, no business. Okay? And I can guarantee you that was the firm, all your offices that were not probably with the board of realtors, because they tended to be a little less ethical than the people in the board of realtors. There were no open houses. You can't have an open house. Well, what happens if the neighborhood is Irish and all of a sudden a Puerto Rican couple shows up? Or what if the area is Italian and all of a sudden, they got black folks showing up? Then not to mention crime. I mean, you're going to let all kinds of people going through your place in the city there? Okay, and plus the realtors didn't want to cooperate with one another. Realtor A could have a buyer, Realtor B could have the house, and then the deal would never work because Realtor B, the realtor with the listing, wouldn't cooperate with the realtor with the buyer because they wanted the full commission. They didn't want to do a split. So it was really something else being in the Bronx. It really, really was. And so with a guy walking around in Northeast Bronx in a dark blue suit, about 35, top physical condition, nobody bothered me. You can say, oh boy, Mike, you're a little up on yourself there about how badass you look. Well, I looked like a cop or a detective. People were freaking scared shit of me. They would open the door for me when I went in the store. They would get out of my way when I walked out of a store. If I was walking down the street and you had a couple guys, they were like checking me out. Is he following us? Is he going to bust us? And realtors. Oh boy. Some of them were carrying a piece right in their waistband. Boop. Some of their real estate agents had street names. It was something else. So, so I really, really worked it. And regarding to those payoff and kickbacks, it was absolutely amazing. And then we're talking the fraud. Oh my God, the fraud. People would pick up a phone number and order W-2s and tax returns. Back then, I guess there was no. Today, I don't think that shit's going on. I really don't. So, I could relate an experience I had with a Indian realtor, a Century 21, and he had a deal he wanted me to do, and it was a super who was a super of a building. He had good income, but he had a quote wife, but not living with him there, but had another apartment several blocks down the way, getting all your Section 8 and all your food stamps and all of that. So he had 3 kids, and he wanted to buy a house, but the state was taking care of him. He wanted to buy a house, 2-family. And I told the realtor, I said, there's no way this guy's going to get a loan. I said, what does he say? He goes, Souls just makes up the paperwork. That's all. Everybody else does it. Oh, yes, and he wanted 2 points. Kickback. 2 points. Imagine that. Pay him 2 points and create the paperwork to make the deal fly, and the guy is probably not going to live there. He's living for free as a super, getting a paycheck. Down the street is, the mother of 3 children is living off the state. So, hey, it's just going to be an income property, right? So I don't know whatever happened with that deal, because I sure as hell wasn't going to do it. I used to have fantasies after I left and I went back to Connecticut. I used to have fantasies of taking a couple Greyhound buses and busting everybody. When I went back to Connecticut, realtors had halos and wings compared to what was in the Northeast Bronx. So that's the business conditions. It was extremely difficult to do business because it's a tight place, turfy. You're new breaking in. You got to be a little more aggressive. You got to do some elbowing, right? You got to work hard to get to break in. That's exactly what I did. Work hard. The problem is, the second firm I affiliated with, when the first couple loans started closing, I was supposed to be allowed to do the pricing on my deals. I was supposed to be, I was supposed to have access to the pricing sheets because that's what I always did with other companies. Okay, so when I went on board, well, I guess that, yeah, okay. Oh, but when the deal closed, actually it was the second deal, they really screwed it up. They just priced it at whatever. I didn't do the pricing. They did. So what did they do? They did the deal with like 5-6 points. They jacked the rate up 1.5 points, and they added stuff to the closing costs, maybe a couple discount. I mean, they really went to town on these people. Maybe 4 or 5 points on the back, service release, yield spread premium, and then on the front you're whacking them, and the rate's high. I told those people, go to the banking department. File a complaint against these people. I picked up the phone. There was a young guy named Vinny that worked there. He was the one that did the pricing. So now I got some young, 10 years younger than me, who likes to wear a sports shirt, polyester pants. He was going to do the pricing on my deals. I gave him a phone call. I had it out with him. And I also asked him, I said, what street corner do you want to meet on, Vinny? Well, we never did meet. But I would have kicked his ass, I guarantee you back then. Guarantee you. So that's, again, two Italians going at it. So what happens? I know I got to start, I had different things I was working on. I had different clients I was working on. I just affiliated with a different company immediately, and I just looked to do business there. And unfortunately, fall was approaching. And you know what? It didn't look like I was going to be homeless for real in the winter. Not just a camping trip now. Shit was not working out. Okay? Just not working out. And now I'm looking at a new firm. I mean, you're talking months to really get a cash flow going in the business I was in. That's the way it was. Now it's back to the Bronx. What was shocking was the absolute prejudice and racism. I couldn't believe it. So I'm thinking, okay, I got a couple here. They're all set to go. You tell a realtor, you're in an office, you say, look, I got a couple that's looking to purchase. They're qualified right now, they want to buy. What's the first question out of their mouth? Are they white? I go, what? Are they white? I'm like, no. Can't sell them a house. And this is for real. Now, there were two brothers I met while I was working with the bank. And, you know, I thought they were Arabs and Islamic. You know, they had an Arabic name. I found out later they were from Jordan. So, of course, you know, I went out to their home. And they opened the door, and there's this big painting of Jesus Christ in the center hallway. I'm like, holy moly. So anyways, they welcome me in, and we go downstairs. Their parents are there. There's different pictures, artwork. I should say not pictures, but artwork illustrating the different archangels. And the grandparents were sitting on the couch under it. And these were super people. And they really took a liking to me. And the reason they took a liking to me is I didn't treat them like shit. And I treated them very, very well. And people know when you got an issue with their where they're from, or what their nationality is, or what their color is, or whatever it is, they know. So this was a very influential pair of brothers, part of a Jordanian community. And I ended up being invited to a double baptism that was unbelievable, Eastern Orthodox. It was incredible compared to your typical Catholic baptism, okay? I mean, it was... And of course, I ended up going to a banquet. I think it was Maestro's, a very well-known, I think that was the name of the place. I can't remember. I think it was a very well-known banquet hall. And I was the only American sitting in there in a Jordanian double baptism celebration with a Jordanian, actually, they were Jordanian band too, I think. Middle East music, the whole thing. I'm assuming they were definitely Middle East, but they were likely from Jordan. Now, those were two guys I was working with when the poor bastard disappeared for 10 freaking days. They wanted to buy buildings. Now, it was tough. It wasn't going to be easy because a lot of the commercial loans available at that time, they would have their own appraisal company, you know, really do the appraisal. They were very conservative, and they were typically, because it was maybe a little alternative lending on a commercial basis, they would just have the appraiser really be tough on the valuations. So they typically would not appraise properties. But they had the cash. They were part of a community. And it was they were most hospitable, incredible, you know, Middle East culture, the whole thing. That's a relationship I would have liked to keep. But when you're homeless, just getting out of a situation, and winter, well, it was called back home. Got the job as a waiter immediately, followed by a job immediately with a mortgage company. And of course, it's not going to show that I affiliated with them in 2000 not 2000, 1997 is when I would start to show income. But I was in there November 96. And they were like thrilled, thrilled that I was working for them. Oh, I can't believe Mike Minio's working for us. And then I disappeared. I called in, of course. And I had a really wicked case of the flu that year. It was so bad. The woman, I lived with a family renting a room, basically. And the mother, because it was a multi-generational family set up there, Greek, Um, actually thought I was going to die in her house. So when I got back, finally, it was January 1997, and they looked at me and they said, "You really were sick," because I had lost a whole bunch of weight. I looked horrible. So there was no question in their mind where I was. I was like really sick. So that's my experience, of the mortgage business in 1990, part of 1995, maybe September 1995, until October 1996. Mike was shut out. And part of it, shut down, I guess. In other words, no runs, very, very little yardage. I shouldn't say no. I mean, a couple points scored, but you know what? You weren't winning any game with that. I got other stories to tell about the Bronx, but you know what? Oh, yes, I know there's one more. I know. I went to the Morris, I would go to the Morris Park Community Center meetings. Oh, yes. And you know what really tripped me out? A lot of the people there were older, 50s, 60s. And they were meeting with the community police, discussing issues that their community had. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Robert De Niro, Bronx Tale. That took place near, I think, the Arthur Avenue area. I'm not sure which sector that particular movie showed up, but not far from Morris Park. I couldn't believe it when they were all complaining about the black kids riding their bikes through their neighborhoods. And the cops were like, we can't do anything about that. I mean, what do you want us to do? Violate their, their rights? I mean, well, what do you want us to do? And I just remember having that moment, thinking to myself, are these the same guys when they were 15 that were beating the crap out of black kids in the street for dragging their bicycle? You know the movie De Niro. That's what happened, right? Black kids come down the street, they jumped them. There was a scene like that. I'm like, were they doing the same thing? So the city is very, very turfy, okay? And people are really trying to defend their turf. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I didn't expect the racism. I'll put you that way. And I remember reading in the paper, the senator, the state senator. God, I forget his name now. But anyways, he nailed a former professional baseball player that was a realtor in the Throgneck section. Okay, he had placed an ad. Well, actually, no, it was mailing. He did a mailing of all the people in the neighborhood welcoming their new neighbor. And of course, they weren't white, they weren't Italian, they weren't Irish. So what happens? That's known as blockbusting, baby. In New York, that's blockbusting. Doing that type of a sales technique to generate what? Potential listings, maybe. When people, because when people would move out if other people were moving in, it would literally create more impetus for people to sell and just move out. So anyways, I think his name was Nagy. He might even sound familiar to some people that really know baseball. And he got nailed to the wall. Hardcore for that one. Oh, did he? Yeah. He sure did. So it was a trip. I got my ass kicked because I was homeless. I had no support from home before I was homeless. And it's a little tough making it out of your car when you need about a year to get established. You really did. In that type of a place, you needed a year, assuming you had the right situation. You weren't going to start generating income in less than a year on a regular basis, making some decent, maybe making a living. Well, that ends part 4 for now. I'm going to listen to this and see what it sounds like. Hope I didn't forget too much, to add in here. This is an off-the-cuff conversation. I didn't think about it. I didn't prepare for it. So if there's a few things I need to discuss, maybe I'll add it later once I listen to what I've said here. I might not like it all and scrap it and do it again. Who knows?